Donald Trump has issued a warning to the new leader of Venezuela, saying in an interview that if she doesn't do what's right, she's going to pay a very big price, probably bigger than Maduro. He's referring, of course, to the dramatic nighttime capture of President Nicolás Maduro and his wife this weekend, seized by U.S. Special Forces in the capital, Caracas, and transferred to New York ahead of a court appearance tomorrow on narco-terrorism and drug trafficking charges. But the woman who's now been sworn in by Venezuela's Supreme Court as interim leader, Delcy Rodríguez, has already criticized America, demanding Maduro's release and saying Venezuela will defend itself. We'll have the latest from the capital, Caracas, and take a look at the wider implications of the events of the last 36 hours with Jeremy Bowen. But first, Tom Bateman has our top story tonight from Washington.
Nicolás Maduro, handcuffed, appearing to limp and surrounded by drug enforcement agents, taken down in the eyes of the Trump administration from president to perpetrator. Still, there was a New Year nod to the waiting camera.
Good night. Happy New Year.
Crowds waited outside the notorious New York jail, where he now faces charges of running a violent cocaine trafficking empire, a claim he's always rejected as a front for regime change. Now, an attempt by the US to coerce his allies that remain in power. Mr. Trump's top diplomat, Marco Rubio, long a hawk on Venezuela, says its leaders have to end drug smuggling and let in American oil companies.
We are not going to be able to allow in our hemisphere a country that becomes a crossroads for the activities of all of our adversaries around the world. We just can't allow it. We can't have a country where the people in charge of its military and in charge of its police department are openly cooperating with drug trafficking organizations. We're not going to allow that. These things are direct threats to the United States.
The raid on Maduro's compound amounts to the US's most controversial intervention in Latin America in 4 decades. Mr. Trump has claimed the country's Vice President, Delcy Rodríguez, has agreed to comply, pressing her with a new threat today that if not, she could pay a bigger price than Maduro. It followed her defiant public comments.
If there's something that the Venezuelan people and this country have very clear, is that we will never again be slaves, is that we will never again be a colony of any empire of whatever kind.
A US armada, says President Trump, is off the Venezuelan coast, the result of a months-long military build-up. It is now being used to impose an effective oil embargo on the country, and he says they're prepared to strike again if necessary. But opposition to that build-up had already been growing here in Congress for weeks, and now Democrats are railing against the president's action, calling it illegal and pushing for a vote this week to stop further strikes.
The United States will run Venezuela. We have learned through the years when America tries to do regime change and nation building in this way, the American people pay the price in both blood and in dollars.
Much of Florida's large Venezuelan population is celebrating a dictator deposed, being brought to justice on US soil. But the spectre of American adventurism, something Mr. Trump explicitly opposed in the past, is also sparking protests. Today, he repeated his claim that the US needs Greenland for its defence, while his national security team says the attack serves as a warning to other leaders, don't mess with Donald Trump. He says the US will get its way in Venezuela. America's history of managing its own interventions could prove otherwise. Tom Bateman, BBC News, Washington.
Well, the authorities in Venezuela say a number of people were killed during the military operation to seize Nicolás Maduro. The military has now backed the new interim leader, with the generals telling people to resume normal activities after this weekend's dramatic events. The streets of the capital have remained calm, but there is fear over what happens next, as Vanessa Silva reports now from Caracas.
After U.S. airstrikes shook Venezuela 2 nights ago, the clear-up continues today. The Venezuelan government has yet to announce how many people were killed in the U.S. military action, but says soldiers and civilians are among the dead. Some residential areas were also reportedly hit.
Flares were coming in, and then came the explosions. We all ran. All our neighbours had to flee.
To be honest, I'm very scared. I feel a lot of fear everywhere inside. I'm afraid for my life. I'm afraid of what might happen.
Nicolás Maduro may now be in a New York jail, but his face still looms across the capital. And a few blocks away from the presidential palace, government loyalists gathered today demanding his release. But elsewhere in Caracas, the streets are quiet and empty. We saw queues to buy petrol, a sign of a lingering anxiety over fuel supplies, although tankers continue to arrive at filling stations.
We've been buying food, just piling up, just in case, because you never know. And like I said, anything could happen. It's uncertainty.
Life in Caracas is actually continuing in a relative calm today. People are telling me they are just processing what has happened, but there is a sense of anticipation hanging over the city about what comes next. The defense minister, who had said he will carry on the fight, he has now asked citizens to return to normal. Venezuelans know that something has shifted, but the true consequences of this change are still uncertain. Vanessa Silva, BBC News, Caracas.
Well, the capture of Nicolás Maduro was months in the planning, but why now? And what does the immediate future hold for Venezuela? Here's Ione Wells, our South America correspondent.
A new dawn, a new leader, but not yet a new order. That, despite this.
We're going to run the country until such time as we can do a safe, proper, and judicious transitions.
What does Trump mean? And who is actually in charge? For now, it's Delcy Rodríguez, Maduro's vice president, oil minister and ally, now sworn in as interim president. The judges, military and ministers remain loyal to Maduro. The US doesn't have troops on the ground, but it holds leverage another way. These pictures of Maduro headed to detention, hands tied, blindfolded, a warning to his allies still in power. Trump has threatened further strikes if necessary. He's made it clear one thing the US wants is oil.
We're going to take back the oil that, frankly, we should have taken back a long time ago. A lot of money is coming out of the ground. We're going to get reimbursed for all of that. We're going to get reimbursed for everything that we spend.
Venezuela has the largest proven oil reserves in the world, $17 trillion worth, enough to last more than 800 years, more than the likes of Saudi Arabia and Iran. It's the type of oil that is critical too. America's own oil industry predominantly drills shale, a lighter oil. America needs more of the heavy crude, which Venezuela has in abundance. But rebuilding Venezuela's oil industry won't be simple. Investment and reconstruction would take years. The country is politically fragile, with security uncertain. Global oversupplies of oil and low prices make investing now unappealing. Across the region, the shockwaves are being felt. Some protesters in Havana, Cuba, a country heavily reliant on Venezuelan oil, show solidarity and fear. With its government another US foe, some fear it could be next.
I think they're in a lot of trouble, yes. I'm not going to talk to you about what our future steps are going to be and our policies are going to be right now in this regard, but I don't think it's any mystery that we are not big fans of the Cuban regime.
For now, Venezuela's future lies caught between a government that still holds power and a superpower determined to influence it. Ione Wells, BBC News.
Well, Nicolás Maduro is due to appear in court in Manhattan at noon tomorrow local time on charges including narco-terrorism and cocaine trafficking. The UN Security Council is also due to meet to discuss his capture. Well, Neda Taufik is in New York for us now. It's going to be quite a moment, Neda, when he appears in the dock.
Absolutely, Clive. You know, Nicolás Maduro and his wife, Celia Flores, have been detained here in this federal detention center in Brooklyn behind me, which is infamous for its poor conditions and has even been called hell on earth. But tomorrow, they will be transported to Manhattan under heavy security for their first court appearance, and that will happen at noon. Now, just like other federal cases, no cameras will be allowed in court, but the public public and the press will be there to catch a glimpse of him being read formally the charges against him, being read his rights, and for that chance for him to enter a plea. Now, the indictment charges him, his wife and his son and 3 others with narco-terrorism and weapons offenses, essentially accusing him and his associates of flooding the United States with thousands of tons of cocaine to enrich themselves and to hold on to power. Now, Mr. Maduro has long rejected the allegations and has accused President Trump of illegal warmongering. And just blocks north at the United Nations Security Council, there will be an emergency meeting on Venezuela. Trump's critics will be saying that this was an illegal action against Venezuela's sovereignty. The U.S.'s allies will be stressing a peaceful transition of power.
Neda, thank you. Neda Tawfiq there live in Manhattan. Well, this is the most consequential action so far of Donald Trump's second term in office. But what could the wider implications be beyond America and Venezuela? Jeremy Bowen is with me now. The reverberations of this weekend's events could be travel very far and wide.
Yeah, they're going to rumble on, Clive. I think there are enormous implications, not just for US foreign policy in Latin America, but worldwide as well. And that's because of what this says about Donald Trump's attitude towards international law and the sovereignty of nations, the control of their resources that he clearly covets. Because, you know, we should be clear about this. The US action is a blatant violation of the UN Charter. Now, does this matter? Maduro has been a bad man. He stole an election. Well, yeah, it does if you believe that there should be rules and law governing the relations between states rather than simply raw power. Now, that was already a tattered idea, but I think we can say that this is another big nail in the coffin of the idea of a rules-based order that Britain, among other countries, still says that they support. So also, I think that the Russians and the Chinese will look at what Trump has done and think, well, yeah, this plays pretty well for us. For Putin, in the Russian president, the idea that he might be able to walk away with the Ukrainian territory that he covets, because clearly Trump believes that big powers deserve spheres of influence because the US has one. And there's the issue of China and Taiwan. China wants to repossess Taiwan. Threats as well regionally, Colombia, Mexico, Cuba, Greenland as well. That's a European issue because the Danes have the sovereignty there. And the Europeans are stumbling around at the moment, trying to find a way of saying they support international law, but they don't condemn Donald Trump. So I think that you look at him, and he clearly is a man who believes that, never mind laws, it's his will, it's raw American power backing it up. And for those people who are hoping for a smoother 2026, I'd say fasten your seatbelts.
All right, Jeremy. Thank you. Jeremy Bowen, our international editor.